So, having high standards versus being realistic. As I alluded to a second ago, I do online mentoring. And so, it typically, I have generally young ladies, but people reach out to me and just kind of like in a situationship or in a difficult relationship or maybe in a great relationship and just not sure, the classic question of is this the one? And so it kind of I feel like we always boil down to really the question behind this is am I expecting too much or am I being realistic? Where's the balance? And I'm a women's empowerment speaker, right? So I'm paid by colleges to go tell women, you have power, raise the bar when it comes to dating. And I believe all of that. But I feel like in this relationship, in this conversation, as with many things, there's pendulums, right? And we have this far extreme of, you know, they must look like a movie star, they must act like Jesus, they must be debt free, they must be 6'3", whatever it is, and like, okay, there's that. And then there's this other side is if they have a pulse, then they look like a great date. And it's like, okay, maybe we need to come a little bit more, excuse me, we need to come a little bit more in the middle and have what I call the messy middle and have these conversations of having high standards versus being realistic. I think it is better to kind of steer or lean in the direction of having high standards because and again it depends on who you are and where you lean naturally, but usually most people lean more toward, oh well, they like me and they have a pulse, so therefore I must date them. I don't know why. There's a lot of reasons people might think. I think a lot of that's based in self-worth. And so I have very strong feelings about people, understanding their self-worth and raising the bar, not dating people who don't treat them well, understanding they are a rare and precious jewel created in the image of Christ and should be treated as such. However, again, we also have this conversation of like literally I talked to a girl and was like, on our second date, I already told him what kind of flowers I liked, and he didn't bring me that type of flowers. So I just knew it wouldn't last. And I had to like break up with him or not see him anymore. And I'm like, he brought you flowers. Sorry, they were the wrong kind, but like, be, have a little grace. You know what I mean? And this especially comes into dating long term or even marriage because there is comfortability and we get sometimes complacent and that's not good. We should obviously continue to date each other, but sometimes in marriage people will be like, oh well, he hasn't brought me flowers in a year and he leaves his dirty laundry on the floor. Like, yeah, because he's human and so are you, and we're all flawed. And so this is where I want to have this conversation in this messy middle. So let's talk first about raising your self-worth, because I think that this is most often what I see when I talk to singles of, I just don't understand why I'm in this relationship. I don't understand why, quote, there's no good guys, there's no good girls out there. I hear that a lot. And I believe that we teach others how we want to be treated. So I'm going to unpack that here for a second because when I hear, again, I work mostly with young women, but if I hear a girl say, oh, there's no good guys out there, or I keep dating guys who treat me like crap, like, well, my sweet friend, this might be hard to hear, but we teach others how we want to be treated. If you are continually saying, yes, it's okay to only want to talk to me after midnight, it's okay to just, continually talk on Snapchat or continually pretend like we're dating social, but not actually meet in real person, to say I'm going to be there, but I don't, to say I'm going to call, but I don't, not follow through on my promises. And you keep saying, oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Then they're going to think it's fine. And they're going to continue to just like, okay, well, that you're setting the bar, the precedent of, I can do what I want and kind of walk all over you. You're not a doormat. Right. And so these are the things to kind of, you teach others how you want to be treated. Now, as we're having this conversation of the pendulum, I don't think it's very attractive or very just honoring to another relationship if you're also like, well, if you don't open the door for me every time, then you're a piece of trash. If you don't call every time you say, like, also things happen. Also, there is life. Also, there are humans. And when you do the research on what makes happy couples last, it is assuming the best in each other. So I got a spoiler alert for you. Whoever you date and marry, they are going to get things wrong. They are going to drop the ball sometimes. But happy couples have a history of assuming the best in each other. And okay, so they're late for a date, assuming they're stuck in traffic, not that they just, were lazy and didn't set their alarm or just didn't get there in time or whatever. If they, I don't know, didn't call when they said they would, they got stuck at work. Like there's life that happens. So again, this is pendulum of having high standards versus being realistic. But one thing I want to talk about is this is kind of my brain when it comes to marketing. So my background is in marketing. I've worked in TV, print, and radio advertising. And I'm also colleagues with a PhD of sexual health. And so kind of the science and the brain chemistry and the way our brains work, it just really interests me when it comes to dating. And one thing that's really just on point for our conversation today is something called the paradox of choice. There's a book about this, a lot of studies, and it relates to marketing and also just psychology. The paradox of choice means when you have thousands of options, you have none. So let me unpack this a little bit. There was a famous study done at a grocery store, and they would put out different types of jam, like, yes, peanut butter and jelly, that type of jam. And study after study shows when they would put out like maybe 3 to 6 options, they would have a lot of sales. And the next day, same grocery store, same amount of traffic, whatever it was, they tested this in every different way. 3 to 6 options, a lot of sales. 12 or more options, sales plummeted. And what they found over and over is when you have tons of choices, you have none. And I think this is so interesting when it comes to our modern dating, because we have this idea of, well, I just haven't found the winner. I just need to keep swiping. I need to, just keep going. And until someone's always going to be better. Someone's always going to be prettier. Someone's always going to be more spiritual or whatever. And yes, you shouldn't settle. Again, we're gonna have this conversation over and over again. Yes, you shouldn't settle just because they're nice and they know a Bible verse. But at the same time, we have this idea of, oh, well, I just haven't found them. And I'm just gonna keep swiping until I found this. Like, that's a savior complex, right? This is person of, they're gonna make all my hopes and dreams come true. They're gonna be perfect. Jesus is the only one who is perfect. I know you guys know this, but goodness, Cinderella and rom-com movies and in even our culture gives this idea of once you find the person, then once I find the right person, all my problems will be solved. I'll get married and live in a white picket fence, and and it's just so. Jesus is the only person that can complete you. As I said, I've been married for 19 years, and I have a wonderful husband. But I remember my younger self kind of having this idea of like, once I meet the right person, all my problems will be solved. And I have a theory that there are no such thing as marriage problems. There are single people problems in a marriage. Unpack that for a second. There are no such thing as marriage problems. There are single people problems in a marriage. And so the best gift we can give our future marriages is working on our single people problems, because we all have them, right? We all have some time that we need to like work out some parenting issues, time on a counselor's couch, maybe getting out of debt, maybe going to the gym, whatever it may be. The best gift you can give your future relationship is working on that best version of yourself. So one of the things I often talk about, and actually someone just alluded to this, is way to keep your standards is to write them down. So I always kind of joke about how, an architect makes a blueprint before they ever break ground. A business owner makes a budget before the next fiscal year. Yet my incredible women that I'm talking to specifically, but men as well, walk into dating, one of the potentially most important decisions of your life, with no plan. So I encourage people to write down a dating plan. Now, this isn't necessarily a list of like, oh, they must be tall, dark, and handsome, and they must blah, 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 blah. Just what are some non-negotiables? And when I'm doing mentoring, and I can kind of dive into this topic a little deeper, I argue your only one non-negotiable should be a shared faith. And I don't mean, yes, they go to church. I mean, do they have a growing relationship with the Lord? And is there fruit in their life? And when I say, okay, you say you want that because it's very easy to say you want that. I bet everyone in this room wants their partner to have a growing relationship with the Lord. And then I ask them to flip that around and say, does that reflect you? Does that describe you? Because we cannot expect a Jesus loving, wonderful future dating partner to come into our lives. He or she is also wanting the same thing. And so we have to be pursuing the Lord as well. And like having a relationship with the Lord is like the bare minimum. Is it growing? And I always like to ask, not necessarily where they are, but where they are going. So when my husband and I first met, he was a youth pastor. He'd been walking with the Lord for like over a decade at this point. I was a brand new baby Christian who had like just stepped out of my wild party days and was pursuing the Lord. But he will tell you one of the things that really just kind of attracted me to him was that I was very passionate, that if I only had one page of scripture, I wanted to like eat it up and live that out with my whole life. And so I guess for him, he wasn't necessarily concerned of where I was, but where I was going. And so I wouldn't worry too much, how long your partner, potential partner has been a Christian, but where are they going? Where's their passion? Because hopefully, if this works out, this is a forever thing. And where you're going, they say over several hundred miles, if you switch the direction of a plane or a ship just 1 degree, it's going to end up thousands of miles in a completely different direction. And so over years, if you are shifting in a slightly different direction, that can end up completely different destination. One of the things that comes up often when I talk to young women, and that is it. It's like, oh, well, if I have high standards in dating, then that will narrow my dating pool. Yes. Yes, it will. The person who only wants one thing from you, the person who treats you like crap, the person, they're no longer going to be an option for you. You are welcome, right? So coming back to that conversation of the paradox of choice, you don't need thousands of options. You just need one good option. One of the things that I often tell young women too is clarity is kindness. And so this was alluded to earlier when we were talking about what matters to you or what are your standards. I think the one non-negotiable is a shared faith, but there might be some things that you really value. And how is your partner supposed to know if you don't tell them? I don't know what it is and if this is a first date conversation or not, but if you feel very loved and valued, if he or she checks in and once a day, how was your day? If that is just like fills your love tank and that's important to you, I mean, I would say it earlier than later. You don't have to like say it in a demanding way, just in a kind way. Especially if they've done it, because what gets rewarded gets repeated. And so if it's like, hey, it really meant a lot to me when you checked in with me yesterday. I just want you to know that really meant a lot. Something like that. That speaks volumes. And so if you see what you want to see, let them know. Clarity is kindness. And women, guys, we are not good at this. And I'm sorry, men, women have a tendency to think that you can read our mind. I apologize on behalf of all women because we do. And I don't know. I'm sure the psychology behind that as well. But women, we need to clearly communicate to our men, the men in our life, as we start to date, if we're single or currently dating, what you value, what's important to you. And when they say what's wrong and you say nothing, they're going to believe you. They're going to believe that's nothing. And so we can do the men in our life a favor by just being clear as we can. I know we sometimes think they can have it all figured out, but they don't. They're imperfect just like we are. Do you think today's standards of dating are selfish desires or wants? There is a lot of what's in it for me, right? And Jesus modeled a very sacrificial type of unconditional love. And when we do get married, I believe that the gift of marriage is an example of how to show up and show my husband what Jesus looks like here on this earth. And he gets the opportunity to do the same to me. Now, yes, this can be toxic if only one person is doing it. But ideally, we're both showing up every day and being an example of Jesus to each other. And, sometimes he's going to get this a little bit more right than I am and vice versa. But over the course of years, and that's important too, because, you're going to go through seasons where someone is just more selfish or more tired or just doesn't have as much to give than the other. And it ebbs and flows ideally over the course of a relationship and over the course of years together. But this idea of showing up and serving each other. People don't think there's this idea of what's in it for me versus how can I serve this person. Imagine the all the problems that would be solved in relationships if everyone sought to outserve the other person, right? Like, I want to serve you more. No, I want to serve you more. That would solve a lot of the world's dating options or problems, I should say.